welcome back to Bengal Bites, a podcast about the Cincinnati Bengals from a real, honest perspective. I'm your host, Derek. This is episode 122. This is the Week 16 recap episode. We're going to discuss the Bengals' dominating victory over the Miami Dolphins, 45-21. I apologize. Couldn't get this episode out earlier. I've been a little bit under the weather lately, so I haven't had the best speaking voice. Hopefully my voice is able to hold out for this episode. It might be a short one, but we'll see. But Joe Burrow is playing through injury. T. Higgins is playing through injury. I'll have to play through a little bit of adversity as well in this episode, but can't pass up a chance to talk about the Bengals' best game of the season by far. They were favored to win this game. It was going to be Quinn Ewers' first start in the NFL, so that was going in the Bengals' favor. Not only that, but the Dolphins are coming off of Monday Night Football, a short week. Bengals had over 30 extra hours to prepare for this game, and with the addition of T. Higgins back into the lineup, which we found out about late in the week, the Bengals had everything they need, with going in their favor. So it wasn't a surprise that the Bengals won, but obviously this was better than losing. Like Zach Taylor said, they just got to get that winning feeling going on the plane ride home. So good for the Bengals. I'm glad they got the victory. I'm not worried about draft position or anything like that. And Joe Burrow said he was having fun. This is why he did all that rehab and training. That necessarily wasn't the fun part. The fun part was being able to go out and perform in the game. Joe Burrow had over 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 25 of 32. Very efficient day for Joe Burrow. It was his second highest passer rating of his career. Also, this was the most points Joe Burrow has ever scored in a game, 45 points. Such a whiplash from last week, where it was one of the worst games of Joe Burrow's career. It was the second lowest passer rating of his career last week, and the fewest points he'd ever scored in a game of 0. And that goes to show you how in the NFL, it's a week-to-week league. And, maybe it was the cold weather last week. Maybe the Ravens were super motivated because they got beat by the Bengals the previous time, and they kind of figured out how to shut down the Bengals offense more than whatever the Dolphins were able to do. Like I mentioned, not every team is going to be able to come out and execute a game plan the same way that the Baltimore Ravens did. They don't have the same players necessarily. So the Dolphins couldn't really figure out much to stop the Bengals on offense. I mean, they did not give up too many big plays. They played mostly a soft zone coverage outside of the first quarter, after they gave up a couple big plays to T. Higgins with Jack Jones trying to guard him one-on-one down the sidelines. That was not a good matchup for him, so they decided to get out of that coverage, go more too high zone, keep everything in front of them. Joe Burrow was content to take what they gave him, dink and dunk all the way down the field, but it was helped by the fact that they got good field position on a lot of their drives. There was a stretch in the third quarter where the Miami Dolphins turned the ball over to the Bengals on defense 4 consecutive times in their own territory, and that led to short fields, and the Bengals offense converted all 4 of those into 4 consecutive touchdowns that really blew the game wide open. Things were going okay for the Dolphins. They went into halftime down 17-14. It was a close game, but by the time the fourth quarter rolled around, the game was already over. It was 38-14, then it got to 45-14 early in the fourth quarter. Joe Flacco played most of the fourth quarter. If that gives you any indication, the game was not close. The Dolphins scored a garbage time touchdown late to make it 45-21. They had a 97-yard drive that they ran all the way for a touchdown. Good kick and special teams by Ryan Rico to pin him deep inside that 5-yard line. But overall, it was a great day for the Bengals. And Chase Brown had another good game. He had 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 2 receiving. He was making guys miss out in the open field, having a great day. He's another example of a guy who has plenty left to play for because he's looking to get paid. He's still on his rookie contract. He's looking to get that next big payday. He could be, I think he's going into year 4, so he's going into that last year of his contract. He could be up for an extension in the offseason, so if he continues to have good production, show that he can be a valuable contributor going forward, he's got lots of incentive to go out there and give lots of effort. That's the thing that you get worried about in some of these games where both teams are eliminated, like the Bengals and the Dolphins. Nobody really cares, and you hope that the players continue to care. But when you looked around in the Hard Rock Stadium stands, there was a lot of empty seats, and there was a lot of Bengals fans in the crowd, which makes me think that the Dolphins fans are kind of checked out on this season. Maybe the Dolphins team themselves, they kind of checked out. Definitely seemed like I don't know what they mixed into their Gatorade at halftime, but after they came out in that third quarter, they looked like, they had mixed in some Everclear in there or something, because they were just fumbling the ball, getting the ball tipped up in the air, and Barrett Carter is getting an interception. The first positive play I can even think of for a rookie linebacker, Barrett Carter, all season came in this game. He even said, the thing I have to admire about Barrett Carter is at least he's honest. And so after the game, they were interviewing him. He said, it took too long. I should have had an interception way before this, but glad I get it now. And so good for him. Not hating on him there. And we saw Demetrius Knight last week have a good game with 2 sacks. And so the rookie linebackers are coming on, making at least some contributions. That's more than what I could say for Shamar Stewart in this game. Unfortunately, he was back. At least he was on the field. But I didn't really notice him. Like, I got all the way into the third quarter, and I said, is Shamar Stewart even out there playing right now? I haven't really noticed him. He had a couple tackles, but no pressure on the quarterback. The Bengals did not get any sacks. That's the one thing that was kind of surprising to me was Quinn Ewers, rookie quarterback, getting his first significant snaps in the NFL. You would think Al Golden would want to kind of put some pressure on him to make it difficult, but he was kind of sitting back there all day. He was 10 of 12, I think, in the first half passing, no interceptions, and giving his team a chance to win, which was kind of concerning. I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter. Bengals are eliminated, so it didn't matter if they won or lost, but it was like, Bengals are making this guy look a little bit too good for his, first start as a rookie. And the announcers, who did not jinx the Bengals in this game like I thought they would, Adam Archuleta, said to Spiro Ditas, he's like, Spiro, we call a lot of these games, basically a lot of these terrible games, where guys are making their first start in the NFL, and Quinn Ewers hasn't looked that bad. Basically not the worst quarterback ever, because they've probably seen their fair share. He didn't name any names, but off the top of my head, Ryan Finley, the Bengals 2019 4th-round draft pick that they traded up to get, Zach Taylor's guy, he had a rather rocky start. And I think Quinn Ewers was a 7th-round pick for the Dolphins. The Bengals, he was a 7th-round pick. Bengals have not drafted a quarterback since Joe Burrow, who had an amazing game. We'll get to him. But they could have solidified that quarterback room at some point. I know you don't want to upset Joe Burrow, but it would be good to invest in every position. But they didn't need anybody but Joe Burrow, luckily, in this game. He did get sacked a couple times. There was one play early in the first quarter. Orlando Brown and Dylan Fairchild, I don't know if they didn't communicate, didn't pass off the stunt, but let a guy get a free run basically at Joe Burrow's back. There's another play. Joe Burrow was holding onto the ball, scrambling around, took a sack, and he took a couple hits. There was one play specifically, I think it was in the second half. Joe Burrow got hit, went down, and was laying flat on his back. And it took him a couple seconds to kind of collect himself, get up. He had to have some of the offensive linemen pick him up off the turf. But that was the kind of hit that made me really concerned. I mean, the Bengals were running away with it. They were rolling at that point. So the game was well out of hand. But it was like, does Joe Burrow... I just saw like Joe Burrow's life flashing before my eyes, basically. Like, oh no, he's injured again. But he got up. He was fine. I was looking like, is he limping? What's going on? But those are just the kind of moments where I have my heart in my mouth, I guess you'd say. And like T. Higgins had a couple nice catches, but then T. Higgins like caught it and fell on the ground. He did a nice roll, though, to avoid hitting his head on the ground. That was one thing they brought up during the broadcast, was that T. Higgins, out of an abundance of caution, they said, or whatever, they had T. Higgins go fly to Pittsburgh to meet with a concussion specialist, get all clearance checked out. And that's a good, I think, more PR thing than anything. I mean, it gives T. Higgins peace of mind, I'm sure. But realistically, I don't care. The concussion specialist likes getting paid paychecks. So if the whole purpose of this was to have this guy come up here and get him checked out so he can play, guess what the doctor's going to say? I mean, I know they're the specialist. I am not a doctor. But if somebody said to me, I had 2 traumatic brain injuries in the last few weeks, and the cause of said brain injuries was playing in football games, the best medicine, the best way to recover from that would not be to go and do the thing that initiated the problem in the first place. But I'm glad T. Higgins didn't get re-injured in this game. He was wearing a different kind of helmet, apparently, to maybe give him a little bit of extra protection. So whatever they got to do to protect T. Higgins. Jamar Chase had a nice game, 9 catches for 109 yards on 11 targets, along of 36. But no touchdowns for Jamar Chase. He wasn't able to break out and do anything crazy. Just a lot of, by this point, ho-hum standard Jamar Chase, where he has perfect timing with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow himself did do a good job of avoiding some sacks and pressures and finding receivers, including an unexpected big play to Drew Sample. He had a 27-yard catch and run where Joe Burrow avoided the rush, found Drew Sample, who had way too much open space. Shame on the Miami Dolphins for not being able to tackle Drew Sample more quickly, because Drew Sample's not a good athlete. But Mike Gesicki had a nice 17-yard touchdown to cap off the scoring in this one. Joe Burrow found him on the seam. Everybody was getting involved. Andre Yosevage had a nice 21-yard catch and run on 3rd and medium early in the game, or second quarter. Andre only had 1 target, but he caught it. So this is a game, I'm sure afterwards, that Zach Taylor would be telling them, this is how it should look every week, and this is how we're going to do it next season, and now we're going to build momentum for next year and all that stuff. But the reality is, hopefully, not all these guys are coming back next season. I mean, the coaches, yeah, they're probably all coming back. The front office, scouting staff, most of them are probably going to come back. Nobody's getting fired. Some of the players are going to get replaced, but probably not as many as there should be, honestly. So this was like typical Bengals, because as soon as they get eliminated, then they start playing good. Now, all of a sudden, they're making all these plays, all these turnovers, scoring all these touchdowns, looking amazing as soon as the season is officially over, when the wins don't mean anything. So, it's just had me shaking my head, because it wasn't even a good game. Like I said, I don't want to see Joe Flacco. I'd rather see a close game that was entertaining. I mean, obviously, I'm glad that the Bengals won. Having them score a lot of touchdowns and everybody doing great is what you want to see. But there was part of me that was like, this isn't even, 4 quarters of entertainment. I'm kind of getting only 3 quarters worth of entertainment out of this game. The fourth quarter was kind of just like a preseason game. And if you take out the third quarter, the score would have been 24-21. It was entertaining, except for what happened in the third quarter. And then things just imploded on the Dolphins like an Ocean Gate submarine, basically. But it wasn't all perfect for the Bengals, obviously, when they went into halftime at 17-14. Dolphins were still in it. Namely, the Bengals gave up a 48-yard touchdown run to Devon Achane, where they had, good blocking. I'll give the Dolphins credit. They had it blocked up, schemed up well. I think it was just a pitch to the left side. They got their offensive linemen up onto the Bengals linebackers. Not a surprise. I think it was Oren Burks, Demetrius Knight, and Bear Carter. They all got blocked. And then it was Geno Stone, one-on-one in the open field, about 15 yards past the line of scrimmage. And I know Adam Archuleta was trying to make excuses for Geno Stone, but he did not slow him down even a little bit. Like, he got one hand out and got, his forearm on Devon Achane on the way by. But maybe he slowed down by, a tenth of a second. Otherwise, he just ran right through Geno Stone like he wasn't even there, all the way in. Obviously, Jordan Battle isn't fast enough to get over there and do anything about it. Just straight through the Bengals like a hot knife through butter. That got it to 7-7 early in the game. So let's go back and kind of walk through the game, do a little bit of a play-by-play. It started off relatively even. Bengals had to punt on their first drive. They got the ball first. Joe Burrow got sacked on 3rd and 6 after they picked up a first down to Jamar Chase over the middle on 3rd and 8. They got to 3rd and 6. Joe Burrow got sacked, forced a punt. Miami, similar, 6 plays, 33 yards, punt back to the Bengals, down to the Bengals' 9-yard line. The Bengals had a new punt and kick returner. They picked up Keyshawn Williams off of waivers. He was previously on the Steelers, I believe, but since Charlie Jones was out with that ankle injury, Keyshawn Williams was returning along with Taj Brooks, and both of them had better kick return days than Charlie Jones has, except for the lone touchdown that Charlie Jones has had this season. He hasn't really been that productive. He's not good at breaking tackles. He's not very big or heavy. So these guys were able to get it out to about the 35, 40-yard line, gave the Bengals good field position. But Bengals' second drive, 7 plays, 91 yards. The 2 biggest plays, they started off from their 9-yard line. Joe Burrow drops back to pass, launches it deep up the left sideline to T. Higgins. He's got Jack Jones one-on-one. T. Higgins is just too big, and he high points the ball, catches it before he goes out of bounds, and doesn't hit his head this time. Maybe he was practicing that. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. Practicing falling without hitting the back of his head on the ground. That's a skill in itself. You got to, do like a tuck and roll, basically. But they hit a couple passes to Jamar Chase in this drive to get it down to 1st and goal. Then a 9-yard pass to the right to T. Higgins got the Bengals on the board first. It was a nice, similar, just too physical by T. Higgins one-on-one with Jack Jones. Not bad coverage, but T. Higgins is just too physical for anybody really in the NFL to guard. But this is when the Dolphins responded right away. 3 plays. It took them in a minute 32 to get back on the board with a 16-yard pass to Jalen Waddle, and then 2 plays later, 48-yard touchdown from Devon Achane. So that was 7-7 with 2.5 minutes left to go in the first quarter. After this, the Dolphins defense forces the Bengals into another 3-and-out punt. Dolphins aren't able to do anything with their third possession. They get 7 plays, 26 yards, punt it back to the Bengals. Bengals, they have an 11-play, 53-yard drive that takes up almost 6 minutes, but they aren't able to score a touchdown. They have to settle for a Evan McPherson 45-yard field goal. This was where they got into 2nd and long, and then Joe Burrow got sacked again. This was where Chop Robinson got into Joe Burrow and forced a 3rd and 13 that they weren't able to convert. So at that point, it was 10-7. And then Miami came back with a 7-play, 68-yard drive that included a Quinn Ewers pass over the middle to Jalen Waddle for 21 yards, and then a Malik Washington end around misdirection for a 9-yard touchdown. That actually gave the Dolphins the lead in this game. 2.5 minutes left to go in the second quarter. The Dolphins were on top 14-10, which was quite a surprise, but no big deal. You know, there's plenty of time left, but more competitive, more competent running the offense out of Quinn Ewers than what a lot of people were expecting. But this was where Taj Brooks set the Bengals up. This new kickoff has made scoring a lot more possible because Taj Brooks returned it all the way out to the Bengals' 44-yard line. And so right away, you're almost, just a couple plays away from getting in a scoring position. That makes such a huge difference because we always saw drives that ended in touchbacks previously would start at the 25. Now the Bengals, they get a good return. They have it almost 20 yards further than they would have every other year before this. So that makes it much more offensively driven. So that lends itself to why Joe Burrow was able to complete. This is where they had the 27-yard pass to Drew Sample. He didn't get in the end zone, but 2 plays later, Samaje Perine up the middle for 4 yards. They went on top 17-14, and it stayed that way going into halftime. At halftime, Zach Taylor said, got to get some turnovers, pretend like a 0-0. He probably said a bunch of more coaching cliches, but he was right. 3 plays into the third quarter, Quinn Ewers completed the pass to Grant Dulcich over the middle, but Jordan Battle came in, put his shoulder into the ball, forced the fumble. This time it was Miles Murphy, Johnny on the spot to recover that fumble, gave the ball to the Bengals at the Miami 34-yard line. 6 plays later, the Bengals punched it in for a touchdown. They completed a 15-yard pass to Jamar Chase and then a 9-yard pass to Chase Brown. He made a guy miss out in the open field, walked in for... Actually, I'm trying to think if this was where he kind of had to dive into the end zone past 2 guys. So good job by Chase Brown extending himself, scoring the touchdown, but not extending the ball out. That's the difference between diving with your body but still keeping the ball tucked in versus trying to extend the ball out and making it easier to fumble. So good job by Chase Brown scoring it there, getting that 10-point lead. Dolphins got the ball back, and this time it was another turnover on an interception. It wasn't a terrible pass by Quinn Ewers over the middle, but a little bit behind the receiver maybe. It gave Josh Newton, a chance to come in. I thought it was DJ Turner at first, but apparently DJ Turner sat out the second half with the flu. He played most of the first half, but I guess he wasn't feeling very well. So Josh Newton came in along with DJ Ivy. But Newton popped the ball up in the air, and this was the ball Barrett Carter came in and intercepted. Short return, but he gave the ball back to the Bengals at the Dolphins' 35-yard line. 2 turnovers in a row, Dolphins committed inside their 35. 2 plays later, Bengals convert 23-yard pass to Chase Brown up the middle, and then Chase Brown ran off of right guard for 12 yards to make it 31-14 Bengals. Dolphins didn't give up at that point, but it was like, man, the Dolphins, I mean, it's a short field. It's a tough position to put your defense in at their own 35-yard line, but you want to maybe stop them instead of giving up a touchdown on 2 plays for 35 yards. So Dolphins, maybe they were trying to kind of losing hope in themselves at this point, but they still had a chance. They were only down by 17 in the third quarter. But the next drive, Dolphins got it. They had 6 plays, 28 yards. They ended up getting into 4th and 1 at the Bengals' 47-yard line. They tried to go for it with Quinn Ewers, quarterback, sneak up the middle, but he slipped when he tried to take the snap and get the first down. He basically just fell straight down, didn't gain any yards, and was immediately down. That's the one thing, other than fumbling the ball, that's the one thing you can't have happen is just getting tripped up and not being able to get a push. So the turf in Miami was a little bit slick. I saw a couple guys lose their footing. Jamar Chase lost his footing, and he's got the best feet of anybody out there. So it was a little bit loose turf, perhaps. I'll give him that. But still, in that situation, whatever you do, you got to stay upright and make sure you pick up that first down. So kind of a rookie mistake by Quinn Ewers led to another turnover. Bengals converted 6 plays, 53 yards, and another touchdown. This is the third touchdown in a row off of turnover. This time it was a 5-yard pass where Dolphins defense kind of had a breakdown, didn't cover Chase Brown in the right flat. He was wide open for the touchdown. Jordan Brooks, the linebacker, was visibly upset because he was motioning and telling guys, hey, somebody pick him up, but nobody got to him. Chase Brown. That's Chase Brown's 3rd touchdown of the quarter. And they put up a graphic that was the first player in the NFL to have 3 touchdowns in a quarter since 2022 when Joe Mixon did it with the Bengals. I'll have to go back and look, but that might have been that Jaguars game where Joe Mixon was just going crazy, but maybe Panthers. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Chase Brown, huge game in this one. That put the Bengals up on top 38-14. It was pretty much over, but the very next play, Quinn Ewers, I'm not sure what he was thinking about. He tried to throw a deep pass up the right sideline to Jalen Waddle, but Jalen Waddle, he threw it like he was T. Higgins, but Jalen Waddle is about 9 inches shorter than T. Higgins, so he wasn't able to go up and make a play on it and got intercepted by the Bengals defender, Jalen Davis. He made a good kind of diving, jumping interception, got in position, but not a wise choice by Quinn Ewers on that one. Gave the ball right back to the Bengals, who for whatever reason left Joe Burrow in the game even though they were up by 24 points. This is where they were driving into Miami territory. They got it to the 17, and Joe Burrow hit that pass up the middle to Mike Gesicki. They left him wide open across the middle of the field. Joe Burrow put it on him. Easy score, and that was the end of Joe Burrow's day. 45-14 at that point. Couple punts by both teams. Dolphins got that 9-play, 97-yard touchdown drive at the end of the game to make it 45-21, but that was pretty much the end of the action. So this isn't going to just totally wipe away all the failings that have already occurred this season, but at least for 1 week, the storylines won't be so negative about this team, about Joe Burrow, about the coaches. At least for 1 week, they can get the media off their backs, feel good about themselves, hear some positive things about the way that they played as a team, as a franchise. It seemed like, the Bengals stadium was going to get overwhelmed by swarms of locusts last week, the way things were going. It was just so miserable. So now they have a chance to feel some good vibes, and hopefully that continues for the rest of the season because it is more fun to win. there's nobody in the draft like a Joe Burrow coming out that, oh, we need to get this player. So whatever draft pick they're going to get, it's going to be in the teens somewhere probably. So whatever. Maybe they can get Jamar Chase to break some more receiving records, catches. He's not going to get touchdowns, but he needs to get his stats. T. Higgins wants to get his stats. Mike Gesicki, all those guys have plenty left to play for, but it's going to be interesting to see how many people stay engaged with the team. The tickets, if I look ahead here a little bit, the Arizona Cardinals are coming in for the Bengals. Second to last home game of the season at Paycor Stadium. You can buy tickets for as low as $10 right now, it looks like. So there may be some empty seats in Paycor Stadium. I wouldn't blame anybody because there's nothing to play for. The team is eliminated already. But if you want to go out and watch some football, if you're a fan of the game, it might not be as cold this weekend. It should be maybe in the 40s or maybe low 50s. So that wouldn't be so bad. And like I said, this just felt like a typical Bengals end of the year game. I predicted this, though, at the beginning of the season when I was trying to predict what their record was going to be. I said they were going to win the first 2 games and win the last 3 games because these 5 teams were pretty terrible looking going into the season. And that's what they did. Surprisingly, the Jaguars are one of the top teams in the AFC, but they somehow managed to lose even though they forced 3 interceptions on Jake Browning. But the Bengals won those first 2 games. They've completed the win of the third to last game. The Cardinals are not good. The Browns are not good. I think they both have 3 wins. They're playing backup quarterbacks the rest of the way, kind of like they did last season. And so this is so typical. They play these quarterbacks. Now, Quinn Ewers was by far the worst quarterback that the Bengals defense has faced this year. I can't think of a quarterback worse than Quinn Ewers. I mean, he's playing in his first start, so the expectations were not high to begin with. But so far, they've had to play mostly decent quarterbacks. They haven't gotten to play the DTRs of the world. I mean, maybe the only other bad quarterback was Justin Fields, but even Justin Fields had a good game against the Bengals defense relatively. So they're going to play Jacoby Brissett, who actually beat the Bengals with the Patriots at the beginning of last season. So I wouldn't put it past the Bengals to lose to the Cardinals, but they shouldn't, really. And then Shadur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns, they're no good. Unfortunately, Quinshon Judkins, their rookie star running back, has a broken leg and maybe some knee damage he just suffered in his last game. So that's a tough one to see. They're going to have to go up against old Bengals Travion Williams, perhaps, in the Browns backfield. But Shadur Sanders, he's not any good. They lost again to the Buffalo Bills, who didn't have their best performance but continue to find ways to win football games. So it's going to be one of these send them home happy type of Bengals seasons. Marvin Lewis is famous for this. Zach Taylor is famous for this. A lot of talk about getting momentum for next season and all that kind of stuff. They had the fast start. Now they're going to get the finish strong, build momentum. Whatever. It's better than losing, I guess. But I just want entertaining games. If nothing else, hopefully the Cardinals just put up a good fight and keep it entertaining, at least within a couple touchdowns. But we'll have plenty of time to discuss that on the next episode when we do the preview for Week 17. But if you've listened all the way to the end, thank you so much. You must be super hardcore about the Bengals and love podcasts. So let me know what you think. How are you feeling at this point in the Bengals season? What do you think about this podcast? Is there any way I could make it any better? Do you have any comments? Let me know. Leave them down in the comments or send me an email, bengalbitespodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm going to leave you with a hooday and stay hungry for more Bengal Bites.